Live. All right, I'll call this meeting of the Isla Vista Community Services District Policy Committee to order at 6:11 p.m. and announce that the meeting is being recorded. See the notification I just got that it's being recorded. How can we have a roll call?
Director Freeman.
Here.
Craig.
Here.
Aguilar.
Here. Moving on to the land acknowledgement. Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge the Chumash people, who are the traditional custodians of this land. We pay our respects to the Chumash elders, past, present, and future, who call this place Anascoyo, the land that Isla Vista sits upon, their home. We are proud to continue their tradition of coming together and growing as a community. We thank the Chumash community for their stewardship and support, and we look forward to strengthening our ties as we continue our relationship of mutual respect and understanding. Moving on to the public comment period. At this time, any member of the public may speak on matters in the subject matter jurisdiction of the policy committee that are not on the agenda. The committee will not take action on any item not on the agenda except as provided by law. Jonathan, do we have any public comment?
No.
Moving on to discussion and action items. 3.1 appointment process policy. The committee will have a discussion on an appointment process policy and give direction to staff.
Okay, so I will share this on the screen, and Jay put this together. And this came out of a year and a half ago. We had an appointment process at the board, and we were like, wait, we need a policy maybe for this to help us do this in an orderly way. So here's what Jay wrote up. Do you want to go over it, Jay?
So when we had that meeting, before the meeting, I was looking at different options for how to do it. And I looked at instant runoff voting, people call ranked choice voting. And I wrote up what seemed like kind of simplified instructions for it that we would use during the meeting. One thing that I did, so there's a thing we talk about in like computer engineering stuff, which is you'll have an offline process where you like write everything down ahead of time, and then the process will happen at some point later behind the scenes. Or you'll have an online process where everyone is in the room communicating, and you can like ask follow-up questions and things like that. I tried to, in some sense, simplify the ranked choice voting process so that instead of us having to start with writing down all of our choices, we would be able to interactively request choices and pull them as required. So for example, like, what's your first choice? What's your first choice? And like, okay, your first choice got kicked out. Who's your second choice? The way in which I did it was a little bit haphazard. And I did not take into account things like how to handle ties at the end of rounds. And so we then ended up going into, and I forced myself to relive watching this meeting, some sections of it multiple times. I was really trying to figure like, what actually happened here? What actually happened? And so there were a few things that occurred. One of which is that we had a process, and then in the moment I was trying to I was feeling a little anxious about it, and I was trying to make simplify it even further during the meeting. And so there I asked the question: is anyone second choice? Yada yada yada. Okay, that would therefore mean that we don't need to do X, and so we should just have a process, and we should just follow the process, exhaustively follow the process. The next thing is that during the meeting, the fallback on the process, it wasn't even what was in the policy, which was to have Jonathan use the spreadsheet in order to calculate the ranked choice voting. And the problem is that the spreadsheet is an extremely complicated, inscrutable process. The computer will figure it out. The computer will tell us who won. And as soon as you're at that point, I feel like you've lost a lot of the transparency, and there were in fact complaints during the meeting by the board members about it's like this kind of process is something that people don't really understand. And that was part of what I had tried to do when I kind of simplified it for like that interactive version of it. We also had two forms of problem come up with relation to the actual ranking process, one of which is this their second choice? Answer no, a little bit later in the meeting, this is my second choice. And so having inconsistency on the questions. And so we should actually firm up each round and separate them into what's actually happening. But the second issue that we ran into, which I think is a very fair complaint to have, and it was part of another thing I was almost trying to solve with the interactive version of it, is you might not want to rank people whom you just don't think are going to win. Like if you're at the point where I think, it's these people, and then you're just like, okay, well now I've got to go through and rank all these other people, and that's going to be not just complicated but awkward. And so there was at least one board member who at some point in the meeting actually stated, I'm pretty certain I've already stated my rankings. And then I re-listened to the meeting 4 times and verified that no, in fact, that had not actually happened. But I also realized Jonathan whispered with that person at one point in the meeting to get their rankings because they had not actually happened. He had not recorded them. With these things in background, but also still feeling the goal, and actually I should have started this with the goal. The reason why I wanted to make a change at all with the way that we did appointments is that the normal process that we have, and that normal process most governments seem to have, I feel is kind of like some combination of awkward and unfair. What ends up happening is that you'll have some kind of like quick rudimentary discussion of the candidates, but then somebody will say, well, I think today our decision is clear. I move to appoint so-and-so to the position of whatever. And then if there's that had any hope of happening, somebody will quickly chime in with, okay, I second that. And then now the decision before the board is on that one specific person, not on whether or not somebody else who was there might have been the better consensus choice among everybody. And so there's this awkward incentive to be very assertive and kind of like take the floor and make a motion in order to control the order in which everybody gets voted on. And you can imagine like a more brutal version of it. There's actually a name for this. It's called sequential voting, where we just take all the people's names, we put them in alphabetical order, and we vote on them in order. And so people who are later in alphabetical order are going to be at a disadvantage because people really going to vote no on the candidate that was actually quite fine, just because they hope that a little bit later maybe we actually get to something. It starts getting really, really complicated there, and the level of kind of strategy just gets broken. So there's like that brutal version, sequential voting. Then you get what we typically use, which is this motion voting. You can instead use something more like a normal election process, where we would just take all the names and everyone would write down a ballot or something, and then we would assign the position to the person who got the most votes. This would be a first past the post sort of. There's a normal other term for it, which is a plurality voting. And one of the problems with plurality voting is that if you have more than 2 candidates who people think would be reasonable, but even if the third candidate is kind of like much less interesting to most people, but is somewhat interesting to some people, that it ends up kind of like causing a spoiler effect on the voting process. So then you get to like instant runoff voting, ranked choice voting, and that's where a lot of places have been analyzed. It's like, let's use ranked choice voting. You started to see movements. You should use ranked choice voting in your community, yada yada. But ranked choice voting is designed for if you have a very large number of voters who are going to go to a ballot box in a very expensive ballot process, and they're going to write down all their stuff, and you're going to do an offline process at the elections office in order to then figure out who won. It did not handle 6 voters very well at all because of the complexity with the tying, and then and with the small number of people that you're voting on, it causes all this awkwardness of having to rank people that you just don't think are going to win, and ranking and everything. So I was like staring at this for a while, and then I realized in discussion with ChatGPT that there actually was an existing option that exists. Like I described what the problem I was running into, and it said that there's an existing option out there called exhaustive ballot. And I read about exhaustive ballot. An exhaustive ballot is used in this exact scenario. It's used in situations like the UK Parliament to choose the Speaker of the House, when you have a relatively small number of voters who are all in the room with a relatively small number of candidates, but more than 2, and you are going to attempt to fairly, transparently, and hopefully somewhat easily vote for them without there being the extreme awkwardness of having to sit there and like rank out the 10 people who are running and try to decide, and make out. So exhaustive ballot is effectively the interactive version of ranked choice voting. And it was very similar to what I described, but it was nice being able to read and see what like some of the tie-breaking situations can be in these things, and how they end up coming up. And yeah, so I added a little thing here, which is almost too simple in a sense. And there are some options we could have if we want something more complicated. If there is a tie for least votes, the board will vote for who will eliminate. So to be clear about this, the way that it works is that we go in and we have a set of who will actually we're voting on. So in the case of a appointment to the board, we might have a process existing that people can put in applications, and if you provide the application by such and such date, then you will be considered for this position. And so we have a set of nominees. Or we're trying to make somebody, appoint somebody to become like a position, like whether it be president or vice president, secretary, then we would have decide who we wanted, like who is willing to do it, and we would have a list of like we would decide first on a set of names, and then once we have the fixed set of names of people on the board that we're going to do it, then we begin this voting process. Each round, what happens is that we all state who we want to be appointed, and there's like a short circuiting mechanism in here. Actually, that sounds like a computer science term. There's like a short circuiting mechanism here where if somebody gets the majority, they win. Very similar to the 2-round voting process that we use in the county for a lot of positions, where you might have like 5 people running for supervisor. If any of them dominates the vote in the first round, they just win. Otherwise, top 2 go to the second round. This is top n-1. It's everyone except the person who got the least votes. There are the way that it works in the UK Parliament is they make it so the person who got the least votes or any candidate who received less than 5% of the vote. So one thing that we might do is add 5%. If anyone didn't receive a vote, we could add like that. We may as well skip them out of the list and narrow it down. That said, there was a paper that was written looking at the theoretical fairness of these various voting processes. And interestingly, while none of these that are being considered here, certainly not like the reason why people don't like pluralities is not very fair in all sorts of ways, but like ranked choice voting actually doesn't fix this one. If you only ever eliminate one person at a time and you run the algorithm to exhaustion, one person at a time with no short circuiting, you get this like beautiful fairness constraint. But I also found another really convincing paper saying that pie in the sky fairness constraint that everyone who's in like works in voting always is trying to obtain actually is kind of nonsensical in a way. It's almost like a theoretical academic goal. So I kind of optimized this to be some balance of very simple to understand, something that anyone in the audience watching, there's no computer mechanism that tries to figure out how it works, but something that doesn't skip too many steps, but also doesn't skip too many steps, but also skips steps. Like it allows us to have that short circuiting process, because I think the majority of cases we end up in situations where everyone has just voted for somebody that really wanted to do it, and then we end up going ahead with the process, and so we don't have to worry about it. I will note that I think that these rounds would be very fast in practice, even if we end up kind of stuck doing it, because effectively what it would be is like, okay, we will remove this person. Does anyone change their vote? No. Now we remove this person. Does anyone change their vote? No. Just remove this person. Does anyone change their vote? And I think we could actually do like, multiple rounds per minute in that sense, because a lot of times you'll remove the person at the bottom and it won't cause a vote change until you end up with a small number of votes or small number of parties. That said, again, if people would be interested in and anyone who did not receive a vote, I think that's a very fair modification to make and puts it much closer in line with the way that the UK Parliament uses it. I, by the way, wrote the description of this before I read the marketing material from the UK Parliament on why they were excited about this. Particularly, I wrote the comment about easy, fair, and transparent, and then I read the UK Parliament's pamphlet on it, and they said almost the exact same thing. And I was like, yes, this is what I'm trying to go for here, something that that provides the fairness but is not complicated, and you can still see the whole process. Interestingly, though, the UK Parliament then, after big argument about it, decided to do this process by secret ballot. We can't do that. Yeah. So that's my presentation on this. I'm hoping other people would be interested in going down a road like this. Yeah.
I'm definitely interested in this. one of the things that I was most motivated by, or like a motivation I gained from the challenges of our appointment process, was that we didn't, as a board, have like an agreed upon process before. So I knew that even if we made a super unfair process that we agreed upon before, it would be an improvement from not having an agreed upon process before. I appreciate that you've made so much effort in looking for fairness and ease as well as transparency, but definitely fairness and ease are important to me. I'm wondering if it's possible either in this committee or maybe later at the board for us to like, if this committee like recommends this confidently, if it's possible for the board at large to like do a practice run with like your favorite flavor of ice cream to demonstrate in front of the public, or that way it's on YouTube. That way, like some future board member can look at it, or future, whoever can look at it, and we can point to it and say, like, here's the board talking about ice cream flavors, and like this is kind of how this will work out. So anyone applying, or anyone seeking appointment knows what to expect in that particular meeting, instead of them looking at the application and thinking, okay, like I sent in my resume and thinking kind of job interview wise, where it was always very private and just different. And then you figure out weeks later versus like hours, the awkwardness is that like the rules around us is that we have to do it then in front of the public, in front of the candidates and all that, which I think is great. But I think it'll make it a lot easier if we could do a practice if possible. Like I said, if this committee recommends this and then the board is interested, then we would do like some kind of board practice. Is that even possible?
We can do a practice round for sure. Okay. Yeah, I think that could be part of this.
I think that would be helpful, like in general, like even, like I said, like my first goal was that like, as long as we have something that we've like, everyone has agreed to, even if it's super unfair beforehand, then there's like not the weird surprises for a future president and a future appointment, and et cetera. And then people are like, well, this is what I was expecting. So you're not as let down. That's like my first goal. With this, I need to like read some of these sentences a little bit more black and white, but I do think I understand like 80% of what would happen. Yeah. I don't have any clear questions right now, to be honest.
I think the one thing for you guys to figure out is the tie thing, because if there was a tie, the chair would be part of that tie. So I don't know if they can break it, unless it's their job to break it. Like they can just eliminate.
That was what I thought would just be okay is it's their job to break it. Sometimes you'll actually see things where it's like if there's a vote on an actual motion, the chair gets to be the tiebreaker. And so in this case, it was essentially to remove somebody that was already hopefully at the bottom of the list. To be removed. But that could end up being a case where it's more critical. The thing that I thought the escape hatch, as if you were chair and you didn't want to clearly make a decision and become very involved, it's your discretion, flip a coin. And so but the thing is that I chose to make it at the discretion of the chair. Yeah. If you want to flip a coin, you can flip a coin, as opposed to defining it as a random process. Because I felt that in a lot of cases, the logic of I didn't feel bad making it to the chair, and I felt that the logic of the chair can make the process go even faster at the bottom of the list.
Yeah, they can make the judgment call.
Yeah.
When I think about that part of the sentence, like tie broken by the chair, I feel like that's how so many other governmental bodies run things. So I think that that's fair when I try to imagine it extrapolated. The non-serious comment I have to share when you said flip a coin is that I immediately thought of Harvey Dent. Is that the Batman character name?
Two-Face.
Two-Face, yeah. Flips the coin for everything, and he's like a politician. He's specifically the one politician in that story. Anyways, in general, or I can't imagine a scenario of not fairness, especially I think the most important part of fairness and transparency and ease is that this is now written somewhere. So even if the whole process was like very skewed towards like certain kinds of candidates, like because it's written, it's like inherently more fair than where we're at right now. I don't think it's like that. I don't think that there's like inherent favorites. So part of this process also is that part of this policy is that it would apply to the appointment of board chair, board vice chair, correct?
Yes.
I think that's useful and fun and also a good way for folks to like practice on a yearly basis. Yeah, and the public will see it, and yeah.
So there's a and
Welcome to County Office, your ultimate guide to local government services and public records. Let's get started.
is a minute and a half.
How is the Speaker of the House of Commons elected? And the Speaker of the House of Commons is chosen by members of Parliament, MPs. The election process begins with nomination. MPs can nominate candidates, and those nominated must accept. And if only one candidate is nominated, they are elected unopposed. If there are multiple candidates, a secret ballot is held. MPs vote by ranking candidates in order of preference. And the ballots are counted using an exhaustive ballot system. If no candidate receives more than 50% of the votes, candidate with the fewest votes is eliminated. Then a new round of voting occurs for the remaining candidates. This process repeats until one candidate secures a majority. The Speaker must remain impartial and resign from their party. The Speaker's role includes maintaining order during debates and ensuring.
So they said that you rank them ahead of time, but that's just because when you go into the next round, you're going to need to provide the thing. But they don't actually write it down. They do it as described, where then the new round of voting occurs with the fewer number of candidates. So
that makes sense to me.
What do you guys think would be board members' oppositions to this? Like, how would you want to get ahead of board discussion?
I feel like board discussion maybe would want to iron out like more specific sentence rules on like you, Jay, described a process in which like theoretically everyone casts their ballot or everyone fills out their ballot. It's easy to remove like the bottom choice, the candidate with the least amount of votes, and then you ask, is everyone okay with keeping their votes like this? I can imagine our board, I feel like kind of what happened in the last appointment process is when people saw certain things, then they kind of wanted to change their strategy in the middle.
you are explicitly allowed in this process to change your strategy in a way that might seem inconsistent. So if, for example, you voted for somebody who is not eliminated, you are actually allowed to change your vote to somebody else. It might look weird in front of everybody, but you are allowed to do it. And actually, there's the criteria that I was talking about earlier, the kind of like academic theoretical one, is something called Condorcet consistency. And I'm probably pronouncing that horribly wrong. But the Condorcet consistency is about that the result of the election is such that there is not a majority of people who would have wanted a different decision. And the argument there is that you would like this property because otherwise there's literally a majority of people who right after the election could do something, if you were doing motion voting, would immediately say, I move to change that decision, and the majority would vote and change it. And so it's you kind of want this thing called Condorcet consistency. To be clear, ranked choice voting does not provide Condorcet consistency, nor does plurality voting provide Condorcet consistency. To Condorcet consistency comes from some of the more esoteric voting schemes, one of which from Condorcet himself, or if you use exhaustive ballot and you explicitly only remove one person at a time, and you do that all the way to the end. Like you never short circuit, because like essentially short circuiting by saying majority at any point wins is equivalent to throwing out everyone who didn't get a majority at that step. Yeah. And so, but the proof of that is everyone is doing ridiculously strategic voting where they are like purposefully putting in a vote for somebody they didn't want to win in order to cause a certain kind of minority condition to occur at a different thing, to throw somebody else out to. And it's just like the kind of strategic voting that every party needs to implement in order to make any of these voting schemes actually do the thing that like they consider to be this theoretical perfect thing. It's just kind of it's just unrealistic, first of all, for our group. And second of all, I think that it actually is kind of not even what we want. Like, and so there have been arguments like there and there was a really good paper I read on Condorcet consistency causes this problem where sometimes you're better off not showing up. Like the strategic voting is so like annoying that like you might determine that if I don't show up to this vote, my candidate will win. But my being in the room will cause this candidate to not win, even though like my preferences are such. Mm-hmm. And so I mean, in that case, you're allowed, like, you actually can fix it by just voting for things you don't want. But like, that's just like, it's just ridiculous, right? And so, because none of the other schemes that we're looking at provide that level of consistency, it seemed fair to not try to strive for it, and instead have this kind of compromise position. I've already forgotten another reason why. What was the question you asked? It was probably something like, what was my favorite flavor of ice cream? And I just went off on a tangent.
It was more so like, John's question was like, what do we think that the rest of the board will have an explicit question about? Explicit hiccup. Yeah. I'm thinking that the rest of the board would want this policy to say like very clearly, like you are allowed to change your votes in between rounds. Yeah. Just to make that clear with one sentence.
Yeah. So at the last sentence says specifically any board member may over the course of the process select a different nominee even if their choice has not been eliminated.
Okay, yeah, and so then also
maybe that's not like that wasn't direct enough in the thing you were trying to.
I would just say each round, every board member is like specifically any board member may over the course of the process. I would say each round select a different nominee even if their choice has not been eliminated.
Okay.
I also think that like doing ice cream like trial run earlier into this conversation is going to be really helpful because I think it's kind of like when you have the board games rules explained to you, you don't really understand until you play it.
Do you guys want to do that like this coming board meeting before it's even a proposal to vote on? Like, have a multiple week, like, put it for the 22nd and the 12th, give the time to play the game on the 22nd, and then they can think about it.
Yeah,
more.
Okay.
I'm comfortable with that version of it. Yeah. Do we think that those two agendas are going to be like chock full of public session things in which people might be exhausted and be like, oh, I don't want to play this game right now?
I mean, the 22nd, I don't think has anything much on it. Let me check right now. So we'll have IVCSD report out, which I don't think will be a lot. Mm-hmm. The tree policy is going to be on December 3rd now. Well, that spoiler alert for the next agenda item. We'll have some closed session on the 22nd, but nothing out of the ordinary. Like maybe one hefty thing, but it's not going to be much. And some MOUs and amendments to contracts that are kind of routine.
Okay.
So it actually is maybe the best day, the 22nd, and the 12th is a busy meeting, but it would be the second reading. And then you can have a third reading even for December. Like you can actually spread it out over 3 meetings. It's a complicated one. So
I'm comfortable with the idea of there being like game the next regular meeting, then second reading / vote on the 12th. And we would probably know from the gamification, like practice round, if people think that there's theoretically going to need to be a third. But
yeah, there just won't be a policy committee until the 19th. So there wouldn't be a chance to make another in between, but maybe you don't feel like there would need.
I can't imagine it there being like, can't imagine those or the rest of our board wanting us to specifically think about it without them. like between playing a game version and then second read, hopefully voting. Like they're either gonna really be comfortable with it, or they're gonna really not be comfortable with it. But I don't think it's gonna be like a super middle area.
By the way, specifically, any board member may, during a subsequent round, select a different nominee, even if their prior choice has not been eliminated. That sound better?
Sorry, can you say it again?
Specifically, any board member may, during a subsequent round, select a different nominee, even if their prior choice has not been eliminated.
Yes, that makes sense to me.
Okay.
And then I would like to have the policy like specify like the definition of the word like vote and nominee, as well as like that in each round, like each board member is getting one vote or two, but like I feel like if I'm imagining a situation in which maybe like people like I haven't read this every single word yet. If somebody doesn't read every single word and they go into the like participation, then they might be thinking, oh, I'm gonna get like 2 or 3 like vote number 1, vote number 2, vote number 3, like not like a different round, but like let me rank my first choice, my second choice, my third choice. And I would just like put in more like there's a plain sentence of like you get 1 vote per round. And they aren't ranked like my first vote, or my first choice. That's how it is, if I'm understanding it correctly, right?
Yeah, so in the 4th paragraph.
You're going to pull it back up.
Yeah, so in the 4th paragraph, that's where I would like specify I guess just like the sentence of whom they want to appoint. I would just say like each board member will vote for who they think should be appointed, or I just want to connect the like the object of like one's vote.
Yeah, I see what you're doing here. I see what you're doing here.
Oh, typo.
And it might be as simple as, I just don't know if this causes some other ambiguity with the way that we use voting normally, but if we just say each round, every board member will vote for whom they want to appoint. Is that?
Yeah, even that would like for me make it more clear, or like each round, every board member will cast their vote for
Will cast a vote for whom they want to appoint.
yeah. I just like, I guess part of it is like the like noun of appointment, like we what happens is an appointment process, but we're putting like a voting process ahead of the appointment process, because it's not like voting is now taking the place of the appointment process. I think the way that we're like jurisdicted is that we could do whatever we want. Like theoretically, I could just say like, I appoint person H, and then enough people vote for it and like accept that motion, and then it happens, and that's like the appointment process. Versus like we're calling in a process in which we want board members to vote to make it clear who they want to appoint.
I almost wonder if maybe the correct thing to do is just try to remove the word vote. Like in the 3rd to last paragraph, where it says, if when there are only 2 candidates remaining, it should become necessary for the board to make an actual decision, with a single candidate receiving the majority of the voters present. Maybe receiving the support of a majority of the board members present.
Yes.
Sadly, I'm sitting here editing a text file rather than editing that.
It's okay. Just send me the text file and I'll combine it.
Let's see, the version of the word vote in the one of the like the slightly lower middle paragraph, some of those actually, I guess, like if there's a tie for least votes, the board will vote for whom to eliminate. That's a normal version of the word vote. Right? But if there's like a tie for least for lowest support. Least support?
I don't think.
I
think it's
wouldn't
pretty-
change,
yeah.
yeah, I wouldn't,
You
I don't feel like
wouldn't
there's a
change
need to change that particular
Okay.
use of the word
All right.
vote.
But you say the board will.
I'm just, the thing that I'm realizing when I'm trying to fix that up, that first sentence that says vote, that every board member will cast a vote and they want to appoint. Like the reason I was trying to go with like cast vote and things like that is because of otherwise normally like we have a normal process for voting where there is a motion and you vote by saying yes, no, or abstain. And so it's like, and so that starts to feel like, oh, so like is there going to be like we're going to have a vote about the person I want and then I will vote yes. It's like no, your vote isn't a yes or no here. It's the name of the
I
person.
think you should create a separate section that you reference that says, here's how the vote works. Like, it doesn't have to be explained in this paragraph, but you would say, see point below, and then it says, in this case, voting is calling out a name, not yes, no, abstain.
Yeah, and I also think keeping the language as simple as possible is going to.
And you
be
think
a
vote
good
is simpler than
But just put as defined below.
as defined?
And then put,
Yeah, and then like below should be like board game rules. Like
Yeah.
anyone could understand this step by step.
Keep that in mind. The vote in this context would be stating the name of the nominee.
yes, that's what I wrote here.
you're
Vote
also-
is a
okay.
name of the person they have preference for. I guess nominee is better.
I was thinking that actually could go, if we take that fourth paragraph. Oh, is there a way I can edit this too?
What?
Is there a way I can just edit this?
Yeah, I
with
can
you?
make
If you're
you,
editing it.
it's, since you don't use the Gmail thing, I think sometimes it gets funky on letting you edit, but let me try again really quick. This internal
It
error.
occurred to me to just actually, yeah.
Here, do you have a Gmail account I
Yeah,
can
yeah.
share?
Use
Oh,
sort.
I got it. This one.
Yeah, that'll work. Viewer access. This file has been updated. Reload for changes to take effect.
One thing I want to share that's like not super important, but just to like fill some of the airspace is that at the third paragraph, the procedure for such appointments, et cetera. Like I like that this policy states how we create the list of nominees. And also like the parentheses, such as a public application. Like I like that we have a paragraph specifically that says like, this is how we'll set this group of nominees, because I'm imagining like maybe like in the last round of appointment process, we had some people who filled out most of the application and then end up pulling back later. And there could be a situation where somebody like applies, but they don't really turn in super serious documents or applications or whatever, but their name could theoretically still be like on this ballot, and like people might feel like they have to vote for somebody or whatever. And so I like that we just specify. I just appreciate that we have that paragraph. I think that's going to be an important part for other board members to see, like there should be a paragraph specifying who the nominees are, or creating the list of nominees. Only the paragraphs below are where I think that there'll be more difficult questions from the rest of the board.
Yeah.
And I think most of it can be clarified with just like being super harmonious with the noun vote, the verb vote, the verb cast, the noun nominee, the noun ballot. I think those are just like these buzzwords that are going to jump out that we need to have like super consistent definitions of.
Yeah.
So one thing I was thinking of doing, and maybe this is what you don't want to do, but is, so I get it up here, is to, because this thing about the definition of vote is contextual then to this paragraph, really. So it's like, then voting will take place in rounds. So this is in some sense then like voting. And so rather than this kind of being like a footnote or a different section, we're able to kind of put, actually get rid of these parentheses, put the definition of vote in that paragraph.
Okay.
Maybe put in quotes.
Well, I think maybe you put like a cast vote in this context, or a vote cast.
I really like that we have that sentence.
Yeah, because I think when we did it the last time, it was like, oh, we'll do this process and then we'll do a motion to appoint the person that the process selects, but that doesn't work because then they didn't want that person. They might not want to vote on that final motion. So this is the vote. Like this is an actual vote happening here.
Got it.
If someone gets 4, I guess they get it.
And so, yeah, maybe there needs to be a sentence also, or part of the sentence could say, a vote cast in this context, like, is a action or motion of the board.
It is not an action.
Okay, it's not an action or motion on the board. Well,
But it is an action.
Okay, yeah,
It is
it's action, like a
It's not a
vote.
motion.
A vote, yeah, okay, thank you for that. A vote cast in this context is action taken by the board.
Yeah, a majority vote, right?
Well, okay, so that's actually where I was kind of like getting into like the question of whether we will use word vote, because it's like the word vote that we're kind of defining here is not the vote that we're taking, it's what is my vote. So like the board will have a vote, or take a vote.
Yeah.
But normally my vote is yes on the vote that we are having. And so here it's like my vote is Marcos on the vote that we are having.
Right,
and so I was kind of like going was like, yeah.
Well, so then maybe it needs to say like in the ultimate or final round. And then we can define what creates a final round.
That's the next paragraph.
Couldn't we just qualify it with an individual vote cast?
And individuals, board members.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, which sentence are you talking about? I was staring at the next paragraph because Jonathan was pointing to the next paragraph now. And so
The A vote.
The A vote, take cap. Okay, what do you want to say?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I love it. And so I think what you're talking about, what Jonathan was saying, the next paragraph, you want something that indicates that this process, when the process concludes, that an action has been taken.
Yeah, an action of the board has been taken.
Because then if you don't say that, then you'd be like, oh, well, what is the action taken?
Yeah. Because we always need all actions need to have a sentence structure behind them.
This
right?
is
because we do actually
an action taken by the board.
I think so, because I think we do have another policy from the past that says that
actions taken by the board
are in motion,
form of a motion.
Yeah.
So interestingly, I do think that the way the UK Parliament might do it is that when the process concludes, then there is a motion to accept the nominee, like accept the winner of the process.
It doesn't say it explicitly, but it essentially says that actions of the board are actually it's not in your resolution. Oh, board action. We actually do have a section on board actions. So we might want to edit this section too, or reference this section to say,
The first sentence, action can only be taken by a vote of majority.
but that's not contradictory because
No, it's not.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's perfectly in line.
yeah. But it says action only by ordinance, resolution, or motion. So we need to add a fourth category. You can just say, or under the process listed under the appointment policy, and then just reference people there.
Wonder if it's possible to go the other direction and say something like, or I mean, to do the thing where we then state that, can the policy say that then a motion will be had to accept?
Yeah, you can do that. Yes, you can. I think if you want to simplify it that way, I think there's two ways to do it. You can change this policy to, or you can say, yeah, there's like a ratifying motion.
That's
like
kind
the
of
choice will be
Ratifying.
That's kind of what I was thinking, was there would be a ratifying motion. I can conceive of a way in which like some future board could then
Not ratify it.
Right. No, you could happen. But no, I mean, if someone won the rounds, they presumably can have 4 votes to get the motion ratified. But there's a chance, I guess, that's not possible. I
We
don't know.
can just do it again.
Yeah. You guys got to go back to the rounds. Yeah.
So yeah, maybe we should, that's why I'm thinking that the appointment process like should connect those dots, or otherwise we're leaving it to tradition.
Yeah.
This policy is so old that we forget we have it for this basic one. Board decisions policy.
I always notice that the older policies are in like a slightly different font.
Yes, that's probably true.
Just say ratify the result. Leave it.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, no, I like where you're going a little. I think I can resolve this comment I made here.
I'm suggesting to change here, which is every round, or each round, every board member will vote for the nominee, the one nominee whom they most want to appoint.
I don't know if you want to say the most
Whom
one,
they want to
who
appoint.
they want to appoint, yeah.
And so really it's like adding for the one nominee as opposed to for the nominee.
I like that personally.
I guess just
Yeah. Cool.
new round. To clarify here, allowing board members a chance to select a new preferred nominee.
Yeah, it's kind of in the bottom set as well.
Well, then the bottom thing was, yeah, kind of like clarifying that you're allowed to make a change even if you weren't removed, like your candidate wasn't removed.
Oh, yeah.
Here
I
it's
think
more
that
just to
that's-
kind of,
Yeah, I think it's good we have both.
yeah,
of them.
contextually clarify what do you mean a new round begins? When I still, like what's happening? Why are we
Right.
doing the new round? You're doing the new round because you might have to choose somebody new because you're.
If you want to strategize.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, so we'll put this
Okay.
on as a draft with a game attached to it, and maybe we can write out the game too, like the ice cream, I guess. Like the top ice cream,
Okay.
and the winner will bring that ice cream flavor to the next meeting.
And maybe part of I like that ending part, maybe part of the game should include like making the nominee list out of like a list of ice creams. Like say if there's like 10 ice cream flavors and then the board, like part of the game is like we decide on 5 nominees, not all 10 are going or something like that. Like that's not necessarily a part of it, but
Yeah, I think I think we'll have to figure out how to write that down.
Yeah,
But I think what we can do is we can start off like the staff report with like 10 ice cream flavors, like the 10 McConnell's ones they have now, and then I don't know, maybe we'll put some typos in or something, and you can like say, oh well, that's one incomplete or something.
exactly.
Or a
That's it.
flavor that's no longer available.
That's
Kind
it.
of too niche of a game at that point.
The UK process, that's another thing I was gonna bring up. The UK process has a thing where between rounds, a nominee is allowed to remove themselves from the voting. So you might like see where this is going and you're just like, I don't even want to be, I'm out.
Yeah, I don't want to suffer.
And I was just thinking that like, at the scale that we're operating at, maybe that's just adding even more process and more questions that have to be asked and more time
Yeah.
spent on things, but I wasn't sure. So
Wait,
Didn't someone do that? Like in the middle of voting last time?
maybe.
Didn't at a point?
I don't think that happened
No.
at our board.
Oh.
But you're saying a voter,
A nominee
a nominee, okay, a nominee.
Between
pulls
rounds
himself- I got you.
is allowed to be like, okay, now with Marcos is out, you know what? And I didn't get any votes. Like the only vote I got was like, Jay, I'm out. It's just.
I'm okay with that. That feels like a confusing thing to specify in there, but I am okay. I can
You'd be
imagine.
okay adding something like that, but you're not like, oh yeah, that sounds important.
It sounds small importance.
Okay.
Like maybe, yeah. Because, well, part of what I see that applying to directly is like somebody who might really not want to be board president or something. And everyone's like, no, like, Jay, you're definitely gonna be board president. You're like,
Why are they a nominee?
well,
I think you're at that point, what should happen is if somehow somebody like, accidentally wins the process and then somehow is like, wait, no, I wasn't supposed to win, then they should just resign.
Yeah, I guess it starts it over right then and there.
Yeah. Not from the board, just, you can resign. I mean, like, if you don't want to be president anymore, I think you can step down. I don't think you have to.
I see, yeah.
Maybe you technically can't. Maybe we never made a process for the president and board resigning the position.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll check.
There's a game called Gnomic that people will play where you'll get on a giant mailing list. And at the very beginning, the only rule of the game is that a majority vote of all the people playing the game can add a new rule to the list of rules for this game. And the idea is that you win the game if you ever get to a point where you can unilaterally add any rule you want without having to consult anyone else because you've managed to rule hack the rules sufficiently and confuse everyone else in the process. Because everyone's trying to add weird rules that would allow them to do it, there's like an opportunity to win. Otherwise, you just be like, well, clearly mine's majority rule that no one can win. It's like, yeah, no, but then you can't win. So, yeah.
There's a technical name for that. It's called Calvin ball.
Right? We good?
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay. Is there any public comment? We should ask that a little bit earlier.
we got one.
Yeah, do you have any more? I should have asked for general, public comment, maybe just on Zoom, maybe there's.
It's just Jen.
I think you covered it again. I was concerned that if you have multiple rounds, people changing their ordering candidates between rounds. They cause you to tear your hair.
Okay. Is there an agenda item you're here for, by the way? We can talk about it.
No, that was it.
Oh, that was it. Okay, all right.
Not really a vote on ice cream.
Okay, is that your backpack?
No, it is not.
Okay.
That's fine.
Oh, there we go. Okay. All right. Moving on to the public tree distribution policy. The committee, actually, do we need to move?
If you want to move to recommend it, that's good to go. But you don't have.
We don't have.
You don't.
Okay. Public tree distribution policy. The committee will have a discussion on updates to public tree distribution and give direction to staff.
Okay, so we don't have a specific update today, and Jenna will fill in more of the details, but just wanted to let you know that we are in the process of getting a simple policy. You know, we have all these different program details here, so this is not really what the policy is going to be. This is like how the program may work and what we'll do. So we will be back soon with a simple policy that kind of says what our goals are. It is going to be really focused on that we give away the trees for free. They're not our liability. First come, first serve is the, three main points. But all this, description is how Jenna might administer the program based on that policy. So Jenna, do you want to add anything?
I would just say that we had a good discussion with Jamie today. I totally get it. After she reviewed this, she thought that the policy was going to be a lot more complicated than we think that it has to be, mainly because we are not going to be the ones to maintain the trees, as Jamie kind of thought. All we will do is give a suggestion to property owners on how they should maintain the trees and how they should select a spot to put their tree, but that's pretty much it. And also, she was kind of talking about enforcing this agreement, which is something that we, one, can't really do. And I mean, if we did, I honestly think that would discourage property owners from even wanting to participate. So just like Jonathan said, we came to the conclusion that this document is more of a program outline. So she'll be creating a simplified policy while I will be working on an application process. And in that application process, there will be something that says that we are not liable for any damage caused by the tree, and also just explaining the recommended maintenance. We also, one other thing we talked about was, I believe I had put that the tree should be in the public right of way, but meaning like, really just meaning that the public can see it. So like in the front yard. But Jamie made a great point that it doesn't matter if it's in the front yard or backyard, it still contributes to the benefits that we are hoping for.
Yeah. And then one other point is that we're only going to have one criteria, which is that they own property in Isla Vista. So there'll be pretty much no approval process, just we verify that's their property. And, they have to deal with the permits if there are any and all that. So yeah, we're good to go pretty much. But we just need a simpler, policy statement of what we're doing.
I'm a little, so the person has to, like the person who shows up
To get a
has
tree.
to own the property in Isla Vista?
Well, they have to own it or control it in some way. They have to have the authority to.
Yeah, well, I'm just wondering, because like I can imagine the person showing up being like the landscape.
No, not the person showing up.
Okay.
Whoever submits that they want a tree.
Yeah. Oh, there's like a, got it, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we could.
I was in the first come first serve. I was incorrectly thinking that the person was at every day. I think you could just explain. I just was busy thinking about the thing. I was going to
I
show
see
up
what
the
you're
truck and
saying.
try to get the tree.
Yeah. Like we're just gonna have 100 like a Christmas tree lot,
Yeah.
and then just show up and grab one. Probably not do that, just so that we can better make sure that the
Yeah.
trees are going to.
We'll have a place to have a Christmas tree lot.
Right. That's also true. So it won't be like that.
All right.
But we might have a reserve of a couple trees that we're ready to go. We'll see.
Okay.
But yeah, that's it. It was just an update today that we're just working on it, and yeah.
Any other comments from the board? Or any public comment on this? Seeing none. Sounds like we're done discussing this. Moving on to jury duty policy, the committee will have a discussion on updates to the district's jury duty policy and get direction to staff.
So I guess, we had a good discussion at the board meeting, so I want to see how you guys want to react to that and how we want to do it instead of 10 days, 80 hours. It didn't seem like we landed like between unlimited and more than 10 somewhere. But I don't know how you guys want to handle that. I mean, I don't think we are so few people and it's like, random. It's 400,000 people in Santa Barbara. That's not who's eligible for a jury, but the chances of ours getting stuck in a 6-month court case is probably very low. But I don't know what the average court case length is, to be honest. I think it's less than 3 weeks. Some are just 1 day. So it's more like thinking about like how much are we really committing if we do say unlimited, what are the chances we use that ever? But I don't know. It's up to you guys on what you want to bring back to the board. But it did seem like it went. I couldn't land on a specific number.
Were there substantive changes to the policy that we had made other than the timing that were not?
Yeah, pretty much all of this that you see here in red is new. The block that's crossed out was the old stuff. So pretty much most of the policy added clarifications.
Crossed off is the old stuff. The part that's in red is the new stuff.
Yeah.
If it's red and crossed off.
It's just crossed off in red.
Okay,
but
that's fine.
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering.
Oh, I see this one.
I was like, if I just read the part that's crossed off, because that's the old part, it says, or if the employee provides reasonable advance, but I don't think that's.
Yeah, no, that was in the old part. It's just chopped up weird, but yeah, just the non-crossed off part is the new part.
But what is the first word of the old part?
Let me pull up the original.
Okay.
Yeah. Here it is. We have to get our Google Drive more.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what the old one said. Or the current one. Sorry, not
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, it looks like it's unlimited right now.
Yeah, that's the thing that occurred during the meeting, right, which is that there was pushback on providing the limit, and then I pointed out that rather than ratifying this change and then putting it back to policy committee, if you wanted it to be unlimited, we should just not vote on this or vote no on this because the existing policy already has it as unlimited. And so
yeah, I think then the question was like my thing or whatever, but we don't have to deal with my thing because if we were trying to align this to my thing, then yeah, the changes we were making were relevant. But if we don't want to align it to mine, maybe you can keep this.
I understand the argument, and I'm totally cool with just being like, okay, fine. If that it's very unlikely to actually cause us a problem. I do think that having a absolutely unlimited potential liability to the district is awkward. I appreciate the social fairness that people should not be penalized because of the concept of jury duty, but I also feel like that is a problem that is not at our level of government. That's a problem at the level of government that causes jury duty. And that fixing at our level of government, at our level of organization, just causes this weird unlimited liability thing. And I felt that the ramifications were already fixed in a way by the thing that Jonathan had brought up, which is that if you don't have an unlimited safety net, you might point that out to the court, and then the court will try to figure out, like, would this be a big hardship to you? Oh, it would be a big hardship to you, then we won't give you this kind of jury duty. And so I didn't really agree with like the making it limited, but also I'm not entirely certain, but not all the board members were there, I think, that day, and I don't know what.
I think everybody was. Was Kirsten maybe not?
Only Kirsten was, yeah. As I don't know what would happen, again, but I also think that it's unlikely to actually cause us problems.
It hasn't yet.
No. I just feel like we should think about what is economically reasonable or financially feasible for the district in terms of like what losing an employee would cost us and how we are going to have to come back from that.
Right.
To continue to run programs.
Right. It would depend, I guess, on the person who gets picked for sure, in a way too. And
I think we can look at like the highest.
yeah, the highest.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
You.
but it's like, do we then put someone in their place, or do we just like, do we hire a temporary employee? How do we make those decisions? It's hard to say,
Okay.
but if it is their salary, you'd be essentially paying double the
Yeah.
salary. I mean, at the not bare minimum, but at a reasonable level, you're paying two salaries at once for the same position. And that could, cost us, let's say if it was 6 months, my salary is 130, what's half of that? Like 65. So that would cost, for 6 months, it would cost the district $65,000 if I went on jury duty for that period of time. I mean, that's like a rough number, right? It's not going to be 100% that, but.
Yeah, this is where I'm kind of like in the camp that you just expressed, Jay, which is like us fixing it at our level of government. Like, we're not supposed to be fixing the like kind of the inequities that exist in jury duty. I like the idea of like trying to encourage participation, but I don't see us as that financially like invincible. They're like, oh, whatever, we'll let someone go do this other very important service and we'll hire a temp. Like, that worries me, like, both for operational like skills, like how easy is it to get a temp for like some of the positions we have? Like,
It's probably not.
It's probably not easy. Yeah. So
yeah, we've been lucky when we've gotten temps.
Like the work quality we expect as a district might not be able to continue, and that's like something I'm worried about, and that we're paying for the work quality to not continue. Those are my concern. That's like my concern about it. When the reasons for creating this like low likelihood risk for us are merely like noble. They're merely like well-intentioned. For me, that's like not enough philosophically to put us at like a low likelihood risk that if it did happen would be a bad risk for us.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can stomach a month of someone being gone.
Yeah.
Of any position. I think that is like, we don't have to pay for a second person. Probably we can absorb the work for a month, maybe. Depends on the month, and so 10 days is probably, it's half a month. It's minimum half a month, could be more because of how court days work. It could end up being like 3 weeks. So if you did make it 15, it's not a big cost, and your employees will be able to serve on like 90% of juries. Let's say that, like, they'd still be able to serve on most juries. Maybe they won't serve on the high profile, gang juries that take 6 months, which is the one someone we know was on. But, if we're getting 90% of the way there, maybe that's enough.
Maybe very awkwardly looking at this as a negotiation between policy committee and the board. The board didn't technically push this back to us and say, make it unlimited. The board just did not like 10.
Yeah.
So it was, in some sense, it's a negotiation. We could come back with 15 or 20.
Right.
And I think that'd be fair.
And this is the reason why it's 15 or 20.
Yeah. And you.
Here, let me average.
Previously, the reason I went with 10 is because that's what Jonathan's contract was negotiated. Now we're going with this number because that's what staff has told us the district could afford.
No, yeah, for time wise, not
Yeah.
financially, but for sure. Yeah, I think that's one way to say we can live through it. It says here that California average jury trials are 7 days. So we should be fine. And we're giving extra because of, courts are slower these days, maybe because of whatever reason, they're backlogged.
Everything's slower.
Yeah. Yeah, Ventura, 4 days average length. So we should probably be okay and not be in too much trouble.
Okay.
I mean, do you want to put in, I think something came up at the board meeting is like well, no, we didn't want to do this, but like there could be discretion by the general manager or board to approve it. If like, maybe it could be the board, that I think is probably better, but some of our other leaves have something like that. Like if you wanted to do like a general leave of absence, like a sabbatical or whatever, you can get board approval for that. So maybe you get the 15 days. And if there is, maybe it's like an important trial or something, I don't know. And we're like, yes, you can go off and do that. But it'll be like an extreme exception, like 5 votes or something.
I don't like it because
Yeah.
it turns into like a even potential discrimination issue. It would
True,
be very
true.
difficult for us to completely be unbiased about what these numerous complicated situations are occurring,
For
in,
sure.
complexities, individual situation. And then also it turns it into even if we succeed in being completely unbiased in our decisions, it then turns into this extreme interpersonal problem of like having to like, well, I asked for this thing, shouldn't I get this thing? No,
Sure,
they
sure.
screwed me over and didn't give me this thing.
Sure, you're right. You're right. I totally get that. So. All right, so then 15 or 20. I mean, there's 20 work days in a month. There's 15 will probably be enough court days for a month though, because of no Fridays.
If we are in fact going back to the board and saying that this is the number that staff said we could afford to not have the employee for, I almost feel like you should tell us.
I can say that. I mean, I'll say a month. We can go without somebody for a month. Without,
Okay. And you considered, earlier I thought you said that you considered 20 days to be a month.
I mean, it is a month, right? It is 20 working days, but 15 could be a month in court days.
So I'm leaning towards the 20.
Because court doesn't come on Fridays, or
But then
sometimes not Mondays.
Would they be working for us on Friday, that Friday?
Then they would work for us, yeah. But still, it would be like inconsistent work. They'd be gone for 4 days and then back. Well, it's whatever. We can structure the job.
From the perspective of the negotiation with the board, I feel like we're more likely to get 20 through.
Okay.
20 to me somehow feels more like a serious difference from what we proposed last time.
Yeah.
Than 15 feels somehow like a smaller.
It's like half negotiation.
Okay.
We should go back with 11.
Yeah, we thought about it just once. Okay. Sounds good.
Any public comment on this?
No one's on the Zoom.
No one. All right. Moving on to.
Oh, sorry.
No.
I hate to ask. Sorry. One last thing. There were other like procedural details added in the draft. Were you guys agnostic or supportive or?
Like new since the last draft?
No. From what we had at the last time. Some of these things that have changed were not the day.
Yeah, well, we were okay with these last.
We were okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that was all. Okay.
I just wanted, the reason why I was suggesting to the other board members, what I was suggesting in that meeting was that like, if you actually feel like you want unlimited, you will be voting in the wrong direction. Like you will actually be like
taking it away,
taking something away from people.
Right.
You'll then be fighting to get back. So in complete transparency, if this is what you want to do, let's just quash this now. Send it back to the committee.
Got it.
So yeah. Okay.
The last one's simple.
All right. Employee misshift in scheduling policy.
So I looked at it again. This one is, I think, in my opinion, is ready to go. The only hangup last time was we had said there's another policy on like unauthorized absences that we might need to resolve. Mm-hmm. But I do think like looking at that unauthorized absence one again, it's contradictory within itself, but not contradictory to this, if that makes sense. Like the unauthorized absence policy, yeah, there's two lines that say different things within it, but I don't think it changes what this is saying. Either way, this is about accountability to showing up to your shifts and not necessarily gone from work. So we do want to move forward to send this to the board on Tuesday, if you guys are cool with it. There's no changes made besides having looked into the absence thing.
Okay.
That's it.
So what are we recommending to the board, or what?
It's this general policy on punctuality to your shifts and attendance and remedies for that and process for, you know, what happens, consequences if you don't show up to work or if you don't show up to your assigned shifts and call out too often.
Got it. So we chewed on this a
we
lot in the past. Okay.
There was just one question. It's essentially it's this line in it. It's like if you don't come to work for 3 shifts without notifying it, it doesn't contradict our other policy. Our other policy contradicts itself. So this can stand on its own, is what I'm trying to say. So we can make the other change independently.
Okay. I'm comfortable enough to speak.
Okay. Is there any public comment? None. We done with this agenda item?
We're
Anyone
done.
need anything else?
No, like it will be
All
good to
right.
go over the future if you okay.
Future meeting dates and future agenda items. The next regular meeting of the policy committee will take place on Tuesday, November 19th, 2024 at 6 p.m. on Zoom and at the community room at 970 Embarcadero Del Mar, Isla Vista, California.
Okay, and sorry, I lost my policy committee board. Give me 1 second.
This is no longer a super anxiety-filled, stressful part of the agenda for me, where I then realize I haven't done the employment policy yet. I haven't done the employment policy yet. Now, finally, it's fun. What's got going?
Well, the tree will be next time. The jury duty will hope these will all be gone from our, well, maybe the appointment process will be next time, depending on the board meeting, but these will be gone. Community spaces policy updates. I think we're gonna wait until the rental like pilot period is over. So I think we won't make changes next meeting. This is the one I just mentioned, the unauthorized leave. Maybe we'll just get that one wrapped up on the 19th. This I'll remove the duplicate. Time card policy, I'm not too concerned about that one. Private rentals, we kind of finished this. Nonprofit funding sponsored policy, I don't know if there's interest in that, but that's been one that came up when we did the 2 sponsorships this last fiscal year. This integrating disability into paid family leave is a technical thing we'll work on. We still need to work with our attorneys to see what they're able to get done. Overpay policy, it's not a critical one, but it is good to have. Honoring groups, we kind of already did this one with our unsung heroes. Contract renewal policy, we have a simple thing. It's been an idea. Do we want to look at that again? Facility naming. Oh, we have that one done. Let's just get that done out of the way. My time off requests. I'll think about what that actually is. Dependent care master stipend, paid family leave for non-pregnancy, GM review policy. We kind of already did that. Organizational culture policy. Sydney actually already worked on that. So maybe let's just put that forward. Yeah.
What is the facility naming policy? If you're allowed to.
Oh yeah. It came up when one of our past board members passed away 4 years ago. And so we were thinking like if we wanted to name anything after anybody, we'd need to have a process to do that. And so
would these only be possessions of the district? Like, for example, if we owned this building, like naming this facility,
Yeah.
or okay.
Or the room, or like if we wanted to do a plaque on, it doesn't mean you name the building. You can put a plaque on. It's
Okay.
covered under this. So
Great.
The projector.
Yeah.
Projector.
You know, some people like say like this hallway is named after this person, so you can get that.
I work at the university.
Yeah.
I see funny names all over the place.
Yeah.
I always figure if I have enough money to name something after myself, I want to get the room that's directly across the office of Professor Did It Like Me named after me, so you have to see my name every time he leaves his office.
And then I wanted to ask also with the master's stipend, potential policy?
I don't remember where it came up, but it was at one policy committee. It's like, do we want to, it's actually more of a finance committee or benefit thing, but some organizations do like a bonus if you have a master's. Personally, I'm not into that, but we're not like an education institution. We're like, oh, if you have a PhD, it's like a thing. But
Yeah.
yeah, we kind of already do that in our jobs. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like kind of already a part of like how someone would be hired potentially.
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
like,
So we can also take things off of this if we're not into them staying on. If this list is not a.
At first, I was interpreting it as like a stipend for an employee who was then like working on a master's or something.
No,
which I'm
oh,
like,
it could be that
that's-
too. I guess.
That's good. I don't know if we have the budget for that.
Yeah.
When I think theoretically, but like some future district.
Yeah. Okay, I think this is a good core, unless, Olivia Marcos, it's your last committee meeting. So if there's any big one you want taken
Well,
care of, what
I
would
see,
you want taken care of? It doesn't have to be on this list either.
I can't think of anything.
Cool. I mean, we've done a lot this year on this committee, so. All right. That's it.
We need to move to adjourn.
I now call this meeting adjourned at 7:32 p.m.
Cool. Thank you, guys. Jay, I know